Delighted to be back recording the Willie Morgan show, and I'm delighted to announce that we have a special guest with us tonight. We've got Jim McCalliog, who is an FA Cup winner, a former Manchester United player, and a player who scored one of the most famous Scotland goals of all time at Wembley against the world champions England in 1967. Before I introduce Jim, Willie, I believe you've got a special guest in your house this week.
Oh, we've had her all last week, and then she went home, and she's back today. She's called Maggie. She's a little King Charles Spaniel. So we've had her for the day. So she's going home later on. My grandson's Alex. It's his dog. So she's absolutely lovely. I love her. So she gets me out for a walk, which is brilliant.
That's what it's all about. And you've got a few hellos as well, I believe, Willie.
A few hellos before we start. Yeah, first of all, to the Francis family, Adrian and Lisa next door, they had a little baby daughter called Brooke last week. Lovely little thing. And it's his number 6, by the way. And he's only 19, Adrian, so he tells me anyway. And a few, because of Scotland qualifying, I've had a lot of my pals on about Scotland and how wonderful it is. So I'm just going to read out a few of them, and then we can finish. First of all, to Stuart Lang and his sons Andrew and Scott. Stuart has a distillery up called Arden Ho in Islay, or Islay. That's where his distillery is. Blair Glen, and he has a place called Coast over in Prestbury. Hamish Ferguson, I was chatting to Hamish today. He's down at Carden Park. Jim Lindsay, George Galloway, Bill McKenzie, Jim Hughes, Steve Cassidy and his dad, Patrick Cassidy. And of course, all the Tartan Army in touch. And it's just great that we qualified. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's it. We can get on to Jim now.
It absolutely is. And Jim, I must say, from Willie and myself, it's great to have you on the show. And the first thing I've got to ask you, Jim, what was Willie Morgan like to play with?
Willie was a dream to play with. Whenever you got a wee bit tired, Callum, and you wanted to rest, you could give Willie the ball and let him go and beat a 3 or 4 and then see what he could finish up with. But Willie was possibly the best player at keeping a ball and taking players on that I was fortunate enough to play with. And I've played with Willie Henderson, and I've also played with Jimmy Johnson. But Willie had, it was a special skill he had. He could just drop his shoulder and go past people. And it was fun to play with him. He's a fun guy, and I'm delighted to be talking to him tonight.
And Willie, just to ask you about Jim, you've spoken very highly of Jim on all the shows we've recorded. Whenever anyone asks who's your best friends from your time playing football, you always mention Jim. How good is it to have him on the show with us tonight?
That's fantastic. My 2 best friends were Jim and Alan Ball, as you know. It's great to have him on the show. I've said many times, he's the best left half, and it was a left half, well, midfielders they call them now, that Scotland produced. And if he'd been with us, and again, I've mentioned it before, if he'd been with us in 74 World Cup in the team at left half, we could have won the World Cup that year. We would have won the World Cup that year. That's how good he is. Jim's a great player, great vision. He knows what I think of him. He's just brilliant. It's only sad that someone like Jim is not in the game in management, to pass on all he had and all he knew. Unfortunately now, as you know, it's you have to be a school teacher with a coaching badge. Sorry, Callum.
The first thing I want to ask both of you, and I'll come to you first with this, Jim. Willie's spoken about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and said that he clearly needs time at Manchester United. It's been a sort of topsy-turvy season so far, but as we speak now, the club won 3-2 against Southampton, and if they win their game in hand, they can go to 3rd place in the Premier League. What do you make of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer so far at Manchester United?
I think Willie's hit the nail on the head then. United is such a big, glamorous club. It's awful, must be awful difficult to pick up any kind of reins and run that club, because I know Sir Matt run it very well, and also obviously Sir Alex, they were fantastic. They had the finger on the pulse. But I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think he has a great affection for the club. And I think as long as he keeps getting the results, as he keeps learning, you never know, he might turn out into being another Sir Alex or maybe another Sir Matt Busby.
And in terms of yourself, Willie, 3-2 at the weekend, a very, very crazy game. You got in touch on Twitter with myself to say that it was a great result in the end. How did you feel watching the game? Because for me at 2-0, I went from being angry to 3-2, feeling absolutely over the moon.
Well, 2-0, I'm fearing the worst, like everybody. I thought, oh no, this is a nightmare. But it's a great comeback. And it's nice for Cavani, get a couple of goals. It takes the pressure off him, because everybody's expecting him to do wonders. And again, it is difficult. But, the league's wide open. The league is absolutely wide open. There's no great team. Anyone can beat anyone. And if United get a little bit of luck and, a good run, there's no reason why they can't win the league. I mean, the league is there to be won. There's not a lot between anyone.
It's been a strange season in that regard. I agree with you. I think you've seen Liverpool lose 7 goals, Aston Villa, Manchester City haven't been entirely convincing. There's shocks to be had, and as you say, United should fancy themselves. We've got someone in touch with the show already, Carmen Pancaro, who's got in touch to say, both of you are big heroes of mine. My most enjoyable season was when I was 15 and United were in the second division. What were your favourite seasons as footballers? Jim, I'll start with you.
I think the thrill of playing for Manchester United was something that I always wanted throughout my career. But sadly we went down. But like your guest said there, it was so nice in the second division. The way the supporters, the way everybody got behind United. It just didn't feel like it was the second division. But obviously, when you're playing football, you don't want to be playing in second division. But that was what happened. And like the little film says, too good to go down. Anybody can go down. It was an absolutely disaster of a season, the season that we went down. But fortunately, we came straight back up.
What about yourself, Willie? Would you agree with Jim in that regard, or have you got another season that you're particularly fond of?
No, I mean, going down, just joining the club in 1968 after they won the World Cup and playing in the original team was fabulous. And it was absolutely great. That first year playing with Matt as manager, it was brilliant. But as Jim said, going down was heartbreaking. When we went down that year, it was one of those years, everything. You got beat 1-0, they scored in the 92nd minute, you got beat 2-1. We didn't play badly. It just all went against us. And it was like heartbreaking. But then the following season, it was amazing because you don't know what to expect. I mean, we never played against any of the teams that we played. I'd never played against anybody like that.
Except for in friendlies.
And friendlies. But everywhere we went, Jim will tell you, everywhere we went, they broke all the records for all those teams, all the home records for people attendance. They broke every record. And we were a good team. We were still a good team. And it was wonderful. It was a great feeling. Unfortunately, by the end of it, of course, the little tit for tat in myself weren't on the best of terms, but and Jim will know who I'm talking about. It kind of spoiled it a little bit, but nevertheless, it was a great it was a great season, the second division. Even though, like Jim said, it's not, of all my career, I had 2 seasons in the second division. When I joined Bolton, they were in the second division and we came up. And then that year we went down with Man U. And it was still good. The football was good, the banter was good, and it's nice to win, no matter where you're playing. It's just nice to win.
Another incredible question, I have to say. Ken Dunn's got in touch to say both of you scored some memorable goals during your career. What is the favourite goal of yours that you scored? And I'll come to you again, Jim, with this one.
There's 3 goals really that I'm quite chuffed about. I mean, obviously, this to score on my debut was stuff that kids dream of, and I was absolutely delighted with that. But also to score in the cup final at 19, the year previous to that was such a thrill, because back in Scotland we watched the FA Cup final from afar, and we watched the whole day, see it all happening and all the rest of it. So that was momentous, really. And the other thing, the other goal that I put in there is in the UEFA Cup final with Wolves, because Wolves were really the pallbearers of everybody else going into Europe, and to be captain of that side in the two-legged final and to score in the first game, that's a goal that's way up there. So pick any of them 3.
And just on that, Willie, before I come to you with your goal, another follow-up question, Jim. Why say anything? It was someone on Twitter, that's the name on Twitter. You have to ask Jim about that goal for Scotland when they were the first team to beat England's World Cup winners. Just talk about that goal. That's what they're asking.
Yeah, that was obviously when you're a kid, and I'm sure Willie be the same. That is the biggest ambition we all had, was obviously to play for Scotland and to play in that game, and so soon after the England winning the World Cup, it was quite amazing. But I could see the goal happening, but in a way, it shouldn't have happened, because little Billy at Leeds, it's Billy Bremner, whenever Leeds were ahead in the game, they would kill the game off. They would take the ball in the corner and run down the clock. So when I was watching little Billy take the ball in the corner, I thought, no, he's just going to keep it. He might even sit on it in the corner, because things was going so well for us. But then I seen Bobby Lennox making a move, and Bobby's so quick, I thought I better get going quick. And I followed up in support, and the next thing, Bobby's on the ball, and then he could see me coming into the picture, and he passed a nice ball square. I've taken it on a few yards, but I'm fully in control then. I've played a 1-2, and the layoff was perfect. And the thing was, where did I put it? Well, the thing I just thought to myself straight away is, you need to hit this, because Gordon Banks is in there. So I smashed it as hard as I could in the near post. Funnily enough, I read something about Gordon saying that he blamed himself for the goal. But I look at the picture and I can see Bobby Moore at my feet and Gordon Banks, and the ball's nestling in the back of the net. There's no better feeling than that in the world.
I think all of Scotland will agree with you on that one, Jim. All of Scotland is nodding and marvelling at that as well. Willie, your favourite goal of your career? Like Jim, you've got so many good ones to choose from.
Favourite goal? Probably the one I scored against Queen's Park Rangers. It was a cup match, FA Cup replay, at Old Trafford. And we beat them. No, we beat them 7-1 or something. We beat them in the replay, and I scored my only ever hat trick that night. But one of the goals I scored, I got the ball thrown out from Alex Stepney, and went past 5 of them, and came to the goalie, and went round the goalie, and just side-footed it in the net. But unfortunately, there is no footage. You know, it's one of those things. And that, for me, I mean, any goal is a great goal, no matter what you do. And I've got really talking about Gordon Banks. I once scored 2 against Gordon Banks for Burnley when I was at Burnley, which always reminded Gordon of when we played golf together. And he said they were both flukes anyway. So
I'm sure he was delighted.
You know something? He was one of the nicest people as well. You know, we talk about Nobby and that. Gordon Banks was a beautiful man. Absolutely no chip, no nothing. He was just a very, very lovely guy. And one of the 3 great goalkeepers of all time, in my opinion. There's been Pat Jennings, as you know, and Peter Schmeichel. But yeah, I think that goal that night was one of the, I said, my only hat trick I ever scored. I didn't score that many. I scored about 100 goals. And that one, I just wish it had been covered, just so I could sit and look at it myself and realise it was me.
Absolutely. I wish we could all see that goal, but I'm sure we can just picture it.
I do as well, because if he's saying that, it must have been some goal.
Absolutely. An interesting question has come in, and it's from the social media team who manage the Jim Holton biography page on Twitter. They've got in touch to ask both of you, and I'll come to you first with this one, Willie. Do either of you regret not having played in the Scottish leagues, as both of you spent your whole careers in England or overseas?
Well, no, I don't regret it. The only thing I do regret is not having played for Celtic, which I obviously know I could have done several times. It would have been nice to have done that just for my family, never mind me. But no, England was great. You know, don't forget I left home at 15, as probably Jim did, and so I spent my whole life in England. So maybe just play for Celtic would have been lovely. But other than that, no, I enjoyed my life in England.
What about yourself, Jim?
Yes, it's a real difficult question, because obviously as a kid in the Gorbals, I would go and see Celtic, and I would also go and look at Clyde, and Thurlanach was around then. And also I went to Rangers, to Ibrox quite a few times, because they had Ian McMillan there and Slim Jim, and I wanted to have a look at them. So the one thing I didn't want to do was go to a Scottish club at the end of my career, because there's so many of them that have done that. They've totally underestimated the Scottish League, and they've come back and they think they can go and play for either Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, whoever. And sadly, most of the time, I'd say 90%, it doesn't work out. So I was always happy in English football, and you know, that's the way it goes. Like Willie, I could have gone to Celtic. Sean Fallon was twice at my house. So you know, that's the way it was. But you know, I thoroughly enjoyed my time in English football, and it certainly enhanced my life a lot.
Both of you crucially mentioned Celtic there, and that leads us to a question from Chris Borland, which takes us up to the present day. Chris has got in touch to ask both of you, Celtic are on a really poor run at the moment. Is it time that they change manager? Neil Lennon, of course, is under a lot of pressure. Willie, what's your opinion on that?
Oh, Chris, obviously, I'm always honest. I don't know why they brought him back. But the fact that they did, I mean, he's how many players has he signed? He's got 6 players or something, 6 or 7 new players. Every time he puts a team out, it's a different team. You know, like the old managers, you put your best team out. That's what you did every game. That was the best 11 that the manager had at the club. And then if somebody got injured, you brought in the reserve, or you brought in one of the substitutes. Well, we didn't have substitutes in the early days, but eventually they did. You have to play your best team. You have to play the formation that's made you great in the first place. And he just seems to every game, he's got a different formation for me. And that I mean, I don't wish the lad to get the sack, because I don't wish anyone to get, well, only one person. That's a long time
I hope
ago.
it's not me.
No, it was a long time ago. Everyone knows what I mean. But no, I just think he's not the right guy for the job. But I wouldn't want to put anyone out of work.
Jim, would you echo Willie's views in that?
I've got a slightly different view. I think Neil's in there fighting. I've met Neil quite a few times. I'm not talking through because I've met him and I know him. I just feel Willie, honestly, he's fighting. He wants to get Celtic out of this mess. There's been a lot of things. I'm pretty close to it up here. There's been a lot of things happening, and players injured, and Julien's been out, and important guys have been out at different times. And yeah. I just feel, a bit like, when you were talking about Man U in the second division, that nothing was going right. I mean, the other night, Yeti has got a nice chance, and he plays it and it hits the post and it comes back out, Willie. Sometimes football, that's why we all love football, because it's never predictable. It's so unpredictable. It's great for it to be around and always be able to go and see it. And I just feel that while he's fighting, keep fighting, Neil, and I think it'll come right.
Well, I hope so. As I said, I would be delighted, Jim, obviously. I mean, the result of the weekend at Ross County, I couldn't believe it. I'm looking at the telly and thought, no, there's something wrong with the telly. I said, okay, go and get that telly fixed. It says Celtic 0. I said, can't be. And, I'm looking at it from afar, obviously. I'm still down here in Manchester, and you don't see, like you said, I don't see all the other things that you and Debbie see up there. So I hope he turns it round. I'd be absolutely delighted. Other than that, Jim McCalliog for manager, and I might even come up and be assistant manager. There you go.
An exclusive. There we go. Oh, Neil Lennon, as well as managing Celtic and Hibs, has also managed Bolton Wanderers, one of your former clubs, Willie. And Why Say Anything on Twitter has got in touch, Willie, to say, did you enjoy your time at Bolton?
Loved it. You know something, the one thing about the 4 clubs I played for, obviously Burnley, Bolton, Blackpool, the 3 Bs, and Man U. I loved all of them. All of them. Bolton was fabulous. They played great football with a great team and a great manager. Ian Greaves was different class. And I loved Bolton. I mean, it was just a happy family club. It was like Man U. The Warburtons owned Bolton at that time. I don't know if they still do or not, but it was happy, very happy. And we had great players and played. I say the football was fantastic. No, I love my time. All the clubs and the supporters to this day, they're still, it's so sad to see them in the situation they're in. It is really sad. But, when they moved from Burton Park to the new stadium, I've been up to the new stadium and it doesn't have the same atmosphere. The old Burton Park was great. I mean, it was an old type football ground, but it had atmosphere. So And of course, Big Frank was there with me, and little Peter Reid, Peter Thompson, Liverpool left winger, great player. We just had a great time. And George Mulhall was the assistant manager, little George, good little guy. He was a left winger, Jim. I don't know if you remember George.
Yeah, I remember him playing for Sunderland.
You're probably too young to remember George Mulhall.
No, I remember him, Willie.
Yeah, he was a good player, George. So Bolton, loved it. Yeah, loved Bolton. Loved all the clubs. They were all great. So, and the support, I keep going back, supporters at every club, as far as I was concerned, I mean, they were great to me. It was, wherever I went, it was very special. And to this day, still the same.
Fantastic, Willie. I really enjoyed that there. And Jim, do you remember your time with Lynn over in Norway? That's a question from, I hope I'm getting this pronunciation right, Terje Hegdal.
Yes, and I enjoyed my time out there very much so. Jeg snakker norsk. For the uneducated, Callum, that's I speak Norwegian.
Willie and I were both looking at each other there, Jim, saying, please help us out.
No, see, on a serious note, I went out there coaching, and it was the guy that took me out there. He was a lovely man, and he owned the club, and he really was nice. And I had 6 months out in Norway. It was great because the people could obviously speak English very well. But the one thing that happened at the club that I was at, we had a dinner because I think it was the 125th year, it was the anniversary of the club's being. And I was sat there having the meal. And when we finished the main course, we were sat there, and we seemed to be sat there for ages. It was probably maybe a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. And nobody was clearing the plates. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking around and thinking, what's happening here? Anyway, what happened then was they gave us another main course. They moved our plates and put down another plate in front of us full of food. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And I just couldn't believe it, but it was some kind of Norwegian tradition. But like I said, yeah, I loved it in Norway, and I did go to classes to learn a bit about the language, and I was thinking I might even stay there for a bit, but then I changed my mind and I came back.
Brilliant. There are so many questions for you both. We'll take a wee short break and we'll get to your questions. Again, we've got questions in the next part of the show, all about Manchester United, all about Scotland, all about memories of winning the FA Cup for Jim, and questions about TV shows you've been on as well. So we'll be back shortly.